Have you ever noticed that schools are among the places where the most ghost stories are born? Why is that? In the daytime, schools are filled with laughter and noise, but when night falls, those familiar hallways, classrooms, and playgrounds seem to turn into another world. The eerie silence creeps in, swallowing the few students who remain, and from this atmosphere, countless school ghost stories are born. In today's video, we'll explore some of the most well-known school horror stories. And at the end, I'll also share a true ghost story that happened to a friend of mine. So make sure to stay until the very end. I'm Mr. Yao, and welcome to the Leyenda Yokai channel. Here, I explore famous yokai and urban legends. If you're into these topics, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out on future videos. In Japanese schools, there was once a strange rumor. It was said that if someone stood between 3 mirrors at exactly midnight and made a wish, they could see their future self reflected in the glass. The wish would come true, but people claimed that their real self in the present would begin to age faster. Humans are full of contradictions. Many adults fear aging and refuse to imagine what they will look like when they grow old. But for teenagers, it's often the opposite. They long for the future, curious to know what kind of person they will become. Maybe successful, maybe shining with confidence. This curiosity makes them eager to catch a glimpse of their future selves. This urban legend takes place at a certain school in Japan. There was an ordinary girl named Megumi. Her grades, athletic ability, and talents were all average, and her plain appearance meant she never drew much attention from others. Perhaps because of that, Megumi longed to become someone everyone would notice. She envied the popular girls at school and realized they all had one thing in common. They were all beautiful. Looking at her ordinary reflection in the mirror, Megumi gradually began to feel inferior. She didn't know when it started, but she often comforted herself by thinking that one day she would become beautiful and rich, and everyone would notice her then. Over time, her curiosity about her future self grew stronger and stronger, until her imagination turned into an obsession. She began to desperately want to see what her future self would look like. Since the internet wasn't common at that time, Megumi searched through the library and asked countless people about ways to see the future, but she never found any answers. One day, however, a senior student she had never met approached her. The senior said she understood how Megumi felt because she too had once wanted to see her future and had succeeded. She told Megumi that if she stood in front of the 3 mirrors at the old school building's staircase exactly at midnight and made a wish, the mirrors would reveal her future self. The senior looked unfamiliar, but in a large school, it wasn't strange to see faces she didn't recognize. So instead of doubting her words, Megumi believed her completely. After thanking the senior, she decided to try it that very night. She sneaked into the old school building, which looked especially eerie in the dark. The 3 mirrors hung at the corner of the staircase, and no one knew who had placed them there. When the clock struck midnight, Megumi stood before the mirrors, closed her eyes, and made her wish. When she opened them again, she saw a mature version of herself reflected in the glass. It was her in her 20s, her childish look was gone, replaced by confidence and grace. She wore makeup, and her smile was calm and beautiful. Megumi was overwhelmed with excitement. She truly believed she was seeing her future self, and it felt like a dream come true. Filled with joy, she went home. The next morning, Megumi got up and began her usual routine. But when she looked in a mirror, she suddenly screamed. The reflection staring back at her was still the future self she had seen the night before. When her father rushed into the room, the mirror instantly returned to normal. Megumi could only laugh it off, saying she must have seen it wrong. But over the next few days, no matter where she went, the mirrors at school, the store windows, even reflections on the surface of water, she kept seeing that same future version of herself. At first, Megumi felt happy. After all, that was exactly the appearance she had always dreamed of. But after a few days, the reflection in the mirror began to change. The woman she saw was no longer in her 20s, but in her 30s, 40s, even 50s. At the same time, Megumi herself started to feel weaker. She would run out of breath after just a few steps, and wrinkles began to appear on her skin. That was when she realized something was terribly wrong. Terrified, Megumi understood it must have been the wish she made in front of the 3 mirrors that night. She returned to the old school building, hoping to take back her wish, but the mirrors stood completely still. Nothing changed. Panic took over her mind, and in desperation, she decided to look for that strange upperclassman again. Trying to find an unknown student at school was nearly impossible. After asking around, Megumi discovered that no one had ever heard of the upperclassman she described. Desperate and hopeless, she broke down and began crying loudly on the staircase. At that moment, a teacher happened to pass by and asked what was wrong. Megumi told the teacher everything that had happened. As she listened, the teacher's face turned pale. The girl Megumi described, the upperclassman looked exactly like a student who was said to have met a tragic fate on campus 30 years ago. Before her death, that girl had gone mad, attacking others with a knife while screaming, "The person in the mirror is lying to me." She had ended her own life right in front of the 3 mirrors. After hearing this, Megumi completely broke down. From the very beginning, she hadn't met a kind upperclassman at all. She had encountered a vengeful spirit. A few weeks later, Megumi's family found her dead at home. The doctor's report revealed that her cause of death was extreme organ failure brought on by rapid aging. Her body had withered like that of an old woman. It said that if someone makes a wish to the 3 mirrors exactly at midnight, they'll see their future self reflected within. The reason is that an evil spirit resides inside the mirrors. Those who wish at midnight can indeed glimpse their future, but the price is their own life force. And the one who first summoned this spirit was the upperclassman who took her life decades ago. After that incident, a new rumor began to spread across the campus. Some claimed that late at night, 2 upper-class girls could be seen wandering near the old school building. They would invite students to make a wish before the 3 mirrors. Strangely, one of those girls looked exactly like Megumi, the very student who had died mysteriously years earlier. Between the spring and summer of 1979, an urban legend swept across Japan, causing most students to be too frightened to go to school alone. The protagonist of this urban legend was the Kuchisake Onna, or well known as Slit-Mouthed woman.
Kirei.
In 1979, the phenomenon of the slit-mouthed woman gripped Japan. Who or what was behind this eerie legend that spread like wildfire in an era before the internet dominated? The slit-mouthed woman legend swept through Japanese schools like a plague, causing extreme unease among the populace. At first, it was just a topic of discussion among elementary school students. It wasn't until some students were so frightened that they refused to go to school alone that parents realized the seriousness of the situation. They demanded that teachers pay special attention to the safety of the students. Eventually, it escalated to schools reaching out to the police for assistance, requesting increased patrols around campus. In the most affected areas, local schools were even forced to suspend classes altogether. The descriptions circulating among students about the slit-mouthed woman were truly chilling. They described her as a tall, slender woman with long hair, wearing a coat and often seen wearing a mask covering her mouth. According to the legend, children walking alone at night might encounter this masked woman who would engage them in conversation, asking, "Am I beautiful?" If the child hesitated or didn't respond, the slit-mouthed woman would reportedly attack them with a pair of scissors. If the child answered beautiful, the slit-mouthed woman would remove her mask, revealing her mouth slit extending to her ears. With her gruesome maw gaping wide, she would ask again, "Am I still beautiful?" Children who responded by saying she was not beautiful or were too scared to answer would still meet a grim fate. However, some daring individuals, despite their fear, might lie and tell her she was beautiful. Upon hearing this, the slit-mouthed woman would be delighted. She would then pick up her scissors and proceed to cut open the child's mouth, making them beautiful just like her. In June 1979, a woman in Japan, approximately 25 years old, dressed up as the rumored slit-mouthed woman, wielding a kitchen knife near a school campus. Initially intending to play a prank and scare children, she was arrested by local authorities on suspicion of violating weapons control laws and subsequently prosecuted. However, this copycat offender was unaware that her actions would cause immense societal panic. People mistook the incident as a genuine occurrence, further reinforcing the authenticity of this slit-mouthed woman legend. Under the amplifying effect of word of mouth, this rumor evolved into cases of perverted stalkers kidnapping children, prompting heightened concern from educational authorities. They actively sought assistance from law enforcement to bolster patrols around school campuses for added security. At this point, rumors ran rampant, instilling widespread fear and anxiety. Fukushima's Kuriyama City and Kanagawa's Hiratsuka City were hit by waves of rumors about frequent sightings of stalkers. In Hokkaido's Kushiro City and Saitama's Niiza City, the situation escalated to the point where elementary and middle schools had to suspend classes altogether, leaving local residents in a state of extreme unease and panic. The rumor of the slit-mouthed woman persisted until August 1979, cooling down only when schools went on summer vacation. It's perplexing that such widespread chaos ensued from a mere legend. Even local law enforcement took the matter seriously. However, if the legend were true, there would likely have been more incidents associated with the slit-mouthed woman over the years. As of today, there have been very few casualties or incidents directly linked to her. The most widely known version of the slit-mouthed woman's origin tells of her as a beautiful woman who underwent plastic surgery. During the procedure, she couldn't stand the smell of the wax on the surgeon's head and kept moving, causing the surgeon to accidentally cut her mouth on both sides. Horrified by her disfigured appearance, she flew into a rage and grabbed a nearby pair of scissors, fatally stabbing the surgeon. In her attempt to escape, she was mistaken for a monster by local residents and beaten to death with sticks. Thus, she transformed into a vengeful spirit fueled by intense resentment. Another version suggests that the slit-mouthed woman was actually cursed. According to this version, her ancestors engaged in nefarious deeds using a dog deity similar to modern voodoo, profiting through deceitful means and ill-gotten gains. As a consequence, they incurred a curse, causing subsequent generations to be born with mouths that would split open, transforming them into monsters. Throughout her life, she faced rejection and disdain from others, leading to deep-seated psychological imbalance. In retaliation, she would randomly seek vengeance on unsuspecting victims. The legend of the slit-mouthed woman, known as Kuchisake Onna, can actually be traced back to Japan's Edo period, spanning from the 17th to the 19th century. According to this legend, she was believed to be a wife who had engaged in extramarital affairs or alternatively, a mistress of a samurai. In punishment for her infidelity, her husband cruelly slit the corners of her mouth. Disfigured and filled with jealousy towards those with beauty, she ruthlessly murdered beautiful women with a sickle and would slit their mouths, making them as ugly as she was. After her capture, the slit-mouthed woman was sentenced to death. Before her execution, she cursed her husband, the one who disfigured her. From then on, every descendant of her husband would be born with slit mouths, cursed to be seen as monsters by society, generation after generation. Witnesses said that the slit-mouthed woman runs remarkably fast, covering approximately 100 meters in 6 to 12 seconds. With such speed, escaping seems almost impossible. Is it true that there's no way to escape when encountering the slit-mouthed woman? Rumors suggest that the slit-mouthed woman has a fondness for sweets. Simply offering her candy can make her happy and prompt her to leave. Alternatively, carrying wax with you could also deter her, as the smell of wax is said to repel her. It's believed that her disfigurement was caused by the smell of wax, which is why she has a strong aversion to it. Finally, there's another rumored method. When asked by the slit-mouthed woman if she is beautiful, the respondent can simply answer, so, or counter-question her, "Do you think you're beautiful?" This momentarily confuses her, buying you time to escape. It's important to note that all of these methods are merely rumors and have not been verified. If you are fortunate enough to encounter the slit-mouthed woman, whether these methods can help you escape ultimately depends on luck. In the 1980s, a widely circulated urban legend known as Hanako San of the toilet became a household name in Japan. Whenever children misbehaved, adults would warn them that disobedient kids might encounter Hanako San, causing fear that would often lead to compliance. Hanako San became a nightmare for Japanese children, resulting in many of them being too afraid to use the toilet alone. But who exactly was Hanako San, the figure that instilled such fear in children? In Japan, there's a schoolyard legend that if you stay on campus late and find yourself needing the restroom, you might encounter someone in the adjacent stall asking if you need toilet paper. If you answer yes, a girl in a red skirt with short hair might hand you some. After using it, you might be pulled into Hanako's stall. Hanako-san is a legendary spirit believed to haunt school toilets in Japan. Her appearance is described differently in various accounts, but she is often depicted with a bobbed haircut and dressed in a red skirt or dress. There's a schoolyard rumor among students about Hanako-san, a spirit that can be summoned. The method involves going to the third-floor girls' restroom at night, entering the third stall, knocking on the door 3 times, and asking, "Hanako, are you there?" If someone inside responds with, "I'm here," the door will slowly open, revealing a young girl in a red skirt. She then pulls the person who knocked into the restroom and supposedly drowns them in the toilet, resulting in a terrifying death. There's another version of the legend where Hanako doesn't drown the person but instead pulls them into hell, making them disappear forever from this world. Then there's an even more outlandish version where a 3-meter-long, 3-headed lizard emerges from the toilet and devours the person, supposedly because they were invading Hanako's privacy. In any of these versions, summoning Hanako leads to dire consequences for the person involved. So why would such an innocent-looking girl turn out to be such a cruel monster? To understand this urban legend, we need to explore the various origins of Hanako, which are all quite tragic and contribute to her terrifying nature. The most widely circulated origin story of the Hanako legend tells of a frail and sickly student who became the target of bullying by a group of delinquent girls. One day after school, these girls dragged Hanako into the girls' restroom, specifically into the third stall, and proceeded to pour water on her through the cracks from above, causing her great discomfort in the freezing cold weather of winter. Hanako, already weak, pleaded with them to stop. Seeing Hanako's distress only amused the delinquent girls further, and they continued pouring water on her without mercy. After they tired of their cruel game, they left Hanako locked in the restroom overnight. By the time she was discovered the next day, Hanako had succumbed to the cold and perished in the restroom. Since that day, whenever a delinquent girl enters the restroom, she might hear someone crying in the adjacent stall. If she foolishly peers through the cracks to investigate, a mysterious force will drag her into the stall, ultimately leading to her head being forcibly plunged into the toilet until she drowns. Another variant of the Hanako legend suggests that she lived during the World War II era. One day, while playing hide-and-seek with a group of children, an air raid occurred. Hanako sought refuge in the third stall of the restroom. However, during the bombing, the restroom was hit and debris blocked the entrance to Hanako's stall. As the fire spread, Hanako was trapped and ultimately perished in the flames. Although both of the previous versions depict Hanako enduring tragic experiences, the following version I'm about to share is perhaps the most harrowing and closest to the urban legend. This story takes place around 1965. Hanako's father worked away from home for long periods, leaving Hanako and her mother to live in a village where Hanako attended the local elementary school. One day during class, Hanako suddenly felt a stomachache and asked the teacher for permission to use the restroom. After swiftly relieving herself, Hanako emerged from the restroom only to catch sight of the headmaster smoking in the boys' restroom. In Japan during that time, smoking by teachers at school was strictly prohibited. If caught, they faced dismissal and could be permanently banned from teaching. Startled by Hanako's presence, the headmaster quickly extinguished his cigarette and threatened Hanako, warning her not to tell anyone about what she had seen or else he would harm her. After that incident, every time Hanako encountered the headmaster at school, he would give her a sinister, knowing smile that sent shivers down her spine. Being just a child, Hanako was terrified and started living in constant fear. She avoided using the restroom alone at school, afraid of encountering the headmaster. Hanako's mother noticed her daughter's distress and relentlessly pressed her for an explanation. Eventually, Hanako confided in her mother about what had been happening. Outraged, her mother reported the incident to the education authorities, leading to widespread awareness of the issue. As a result, the headmaster was dismissed from his position and permanently barred from teaching. Hanako thought she wouldn't see the headmaster at school again and hoped for things to return to normal, but little did she know that it was only the beginning of her ordeal. One evening, after finishing their classroom duties, Hanako and a classmate agreed to walk home together. As they exited the classroom door, Hanako suddenly felt the need to use the restroom and asked her classmate to wait for her. However, the classmate, impatient, decided to leave on their own. Once inside the restroom and having just closed the door, Hanako heard someone entering. The person went from stall to stall, knocking and calling out, "Hanako, where are you? Let's play together." Recognizing the voice as the headmaster's, Hanako felt intense fear, her body freezing in terror. She held her breath and remained quiet. Undeterred by the lack of response, the headmaster continued pushing open each stall door. Suddenly, the voice outside ceased, and just as Hanako sighed with relief, a voice from above exclaimed, "I've found you." The next day, Hanako's lifeless body was discovered in the restroom. The details of what transpired during that time remain a mystery, but her white dress was stained crimson with blood. Since then, the legend of Hanako spread far and wide. Some believe that Hanako appears in school restrooms to seek vengeance against the teacher who killed her. Others speculate that Hanako, tormented to death in the restroom and consumed by deep resentment, remains haunting the school, seeking companionship only to torment them as a form of twisted revenge. Although the urban legend of Hanako cannot be verified for its authenticity, there is a trend among students to engage in a daring challenge of summoning her. I want to caution all good children, never stay at school until late at night, and especially do not attempt to summon Hanako in the restroom during the night. While this is just a legend, if you happen to receive a response when summoning Hanako, have you planned your escape route? In Japan, there is a terrifying legend. According to the legend, after the sun sets, a woman without the lower half of her body would appear on the railway overpass. As she moved, she made a chilling sound, Teke Teke. She would attack her chosen target, and even if the target managed to escape temporarily, they would be killed within 3 days. This woman from the legend is the well-known yokai from Japanese urban legend, Teke Teke. Teke Teke is an evil spirit from Japanese urban legends. The legend tells the tragic story of a female student. It is said that this student fell onto the railway tracks during a prank involving cicadas, and her body was cut in half by a train. She became an onryo, a vengeful spirit, who haunts urban areas and train stations at night. Since she lost her lower body, she can only move using her hands, dragging her upper body and making a scratching or teke teke sound. This sound is produced by her elbows or the severed ends of her body scraping against the ground. If she encounters someone, she will chase them and cut them in half at the waist, mimicking her own disfigurement to kill them. There are many versions of the legend of Teke Teke, but the most well-known story takes place in a cold winter in Hokkaido. One midnight, amidst heavy snowfall, a train was moving as usual through the snowy night. Suddenly, the train driver saw a woman rush onto the tracks. He hit the brakes immediately, but it was too late. The train struck the woman, dragging her for several meters before coming to a stop. The woman was crushed into 2 pieces by the train on the spot. Due to the extremely cold weather, her blood vessels contracted, slowing down the bleeding, and she did not die immediately. However, with her body severed in 2, she could only crawl with her upper body using her hands, groaning in pain and repeatedly crying out, "Where are my legs? Where are my legs?" desperately searching for her lower half. However, the people at the scene were helpless and could only silently cover the woman with a white cloth. After struggling in agony for about 30 minutes, the woman's cries for help grew weaker and weaker, ultimately failing to escape the fate of death. During the moments before her passing, she endured the most excruciating and horrific ordeal, fueling within her an immense resentment towards humanity. Consumed by this overwhelming resentment, she transformed into a vengeful spirit, harboring hatred towards humans, endlessly haunting the mortal realm, seeking revenge and retribution. Some claim that the woman chose to end her life by lying on the tracks due to being violated, but the more widely circulated version suggests that she tragically met her demise due to a prank. It's said that the girl had a particular fear of cicadas, which many classmates used to tease her about. On a snowy night while she was waiting for the train to return home, several female students quietly threw a cicada at her. Startled, she fell onto the tracks just as the train arrived at the station, leading to the tragedy. Hence, as the onryo known as Teke Teke, she specifically hunts female students, perhaps seeking to eliminate those who once teased her with pranks. In addition to the mentioned version, there's another version of the Teke Teke legend. In this version, Teke Teke's real name is Kashima Reiko, and she was a beauty from the Showa era. After World War II, Japan was defeated and under American control for a period, with American soldiers seen everywhere in the streets. One late night, while walking near Kakogawa Station, Kashima Reiko tragically fell victim to an assault by a group of American soldiers. Afterward, fearing exposure, the American soldiers shockingly shot through Kashima Reiko's hands and feet and abandoned her in the wilderness. Just as Kashima Reiko was on the verge of death, a kind-hearted doctor happened to pass by and saved her life in the nick of time. However, the cost was that both her hands and feet had to be amputated, or else she would succumb to bacterial infection. While Reiko miraculously regained her life, she lost her beauty and freedom, gradually sinking into despair. One day, during an outing, she wheeled herself to the railway bridge near Kakogawa Station. After tipping over her wheelchair, she twisted her limbless body with great effort, climbing up the railing using all her strength. Without hesitation, she jumped off. At that moment, a train roared by, and Kashima Reiko was instantly crushed to death. After the incident, the police collected scattered body parts from the railway tracks, but they could never find the severed head. From then on, many bizarre deaths occurred in the vicinity. Otherwise healthy individuals would suddenly drop dead during the night. The common thread among these deceased individuals was that 3 days before their deaths, they all experienced strange encounters. According to one survivor's recollection, as he was walking one day, he suddenly encountered a bright white light. Upon closer inspection, he noticed something within the light moving towards him. Then, he heard the strange sound of Teke Teke. As the sound grew closer, he realized it was a limbless, bloodied body crawling towards him at an incredible speed. The Teke Teke sound was the result of this body rapidly crawling using its elbows. For the next 3 days, he continuously heard this Teke Teke sound, relentlessly hunted by Teke Teke. If caught, one would then become the next Teke Teke. In the story of Teke Teke, it's mentioned that her blood vessels contracted due to the cold, causing her blood flow to stop, which led to her suffering before death. However, many people argue that in the cold winters of Hokkaido, such a scenario is unlikely. Unless rapidly cooled to several hundred degrees below zero, it's not possible to contract blood vessels or freeze blood at the entry points to stop bleeding at human body temperatures. Therefore, the authenticity of the Teke Teke urban legend has been questioned. Regardless of whether the urban legend of Teke Teke is true or not, we should be cautious not to treat pranks as fun, especially not to play them on others in dangerous situations. However, if you happen to encounter a woman at night who appears to have only half a body and is crawling with her hands, regardless of whether she emits the sound of Teke Teke, please immediately shout, "Go back to hell." Don't ask me why, because you'll thank me. It is said that in Japanese schools, staircases usually only have 12 steps. However, if delinquent students linger at school until nightfall, an elusive 13th step appears on the staircase. Those who witness this 13th step meet a chilling fate. They vanish without a trace. A tragic rumor once spread about a certain school in Japan, reputed to have the highest number of delinquent students. Almost every day, incidents of various sizes disrupting school discipline unfolded. From minor offenses like delinquent students openly smoking, to more serious incidents such as verbal altercations and physical assaults against teachers by students, the school faced a wide spectrum of disciplinary challenges. The school authorities have resigned themselves to the fact that these delinquent students show no signs of remorse, regardless of the punishment inflicted upon them. Expulsion remains the final resort, yet the school is hesitant due to the potential damage to its reputation from expelling too many students. Therefore, unless the offenses are egregious, the authorities opt to turn a blind eye in order to maintain peace. The school's attitude only serves to embolden many delinquent students, who become increasingly brazen within the school premises. With the belief that they won't face expulsion regardless of the severity of their mistakes, they are at most given demerits and verbal warnings. This, in turn, fosters their rebellious personalities. A group of delinquents, as usual, were extorting weaker students. Because it wasn't the first time, the victim had already informed his parents. Today, when he was being extorted, his father happened to be secretly watching over him. Thus, it can be said that the father caught the delinquents in the act of bullying his child. Enraged, the father rushed over to his child's side. Upon seeing an adult charging toward them, the delinquents scattered like birds. However, the father managed to catch one delinquent who couldn't escape in time. We refer to the delinquent student caught as Akira. Akira has a habit of carrying a small knife with him. In an attempt to break free, he drew his knife and stabbed at the father's arm before fleeing. He was identified, and with testimony from the extorted student, Akira was soon apprehended by the school authorities. Due to the severity of this violent incident, the father of the extorted student also pressed charges against Akira, forcing the issue to involve the police. With no other recourse, the principal reluctantly ordered Akira to be expelled. The act of violence resulting in expulsion made it impossible for Akira to find acceptance in schools across Japan. Faced with widespread disdain from others, Akira's mother, overwhelmed by the sense of alienation, tragically chose to end her life by hanging herself. Consumed by despair, Akira directed all his misfortune towards the school that expelled him. Driven by vengeance, he decided to orchestrate a plan to set the entire school on fire. However, on the night when Akira executed his plan, due to insufficient planning, he was quickly discovered by patrolling guards. Chased relentlessly, Akira could only desperately run upstairs. Just as he reached the stairwell on the 3rd floor, his foot missed a step, causing him to tumble down from the 12th level. His head struck the ground first, shattering his skull, and he died on the spot. The blood flowing from his body stained the stairwell crimson, creating the ghastly illusion of an additional step made of blood. The sight was horrifying beyond words. Following this incident, a school legend began to unfold. Afterward, there were frequent reports of delinquent students mysteriously disappearing from the school. Yet the reason behind these disappearances remained elusive. Just when everyone was at a loss for a solution, a student named Bunji came forward, claiming that he had also narrowly escaped being abducted. However, the abductor turned out to be a staircase. Like a survivor of a harrowing ordeal, Bunji trembled as he recounted his experience. The night before last, bored of heading straight home after school, Bunji lingered in the school stairwell with his delinquent friends, smoking and chatting. His friends, fearful of the rumors of disappearances, dared not stay at the school for too long and left before dark. Eventually, only Bunji remained, alone. As the evening descended, the bored Bunji sat on the stairs, contemplating life while smoking. He noticed that his cigarette had burned out and reluctantly decided it was time to leave school and head home. Just then, someone called out to him from behind. Turning around, Bunji saw a senior student with golden hair and a rebellious demeanor, wearing the uniform of the upperclassmen. Upon inquiry from the senior student, Bunji revealed that he didn't go home after school simply because he found ordinary life dull and sought excitement. Convinced that Bunji was one of their own, the senior student passed him a cigarette and invited him to join the delinquent student's paradise. Intrigued, Bunji expressed his interest to the senior student, who grinned in delight. The senior student then suggested that Bunji accompany him to the top floor of the school, where the paradise was located. Placing a hand on Bunji's shoulder, the senior student pushed him forward, leading the way up the stairs. As they reached the landing between the 1st and 2nd floors, the senior student suddenly asked, "Do you know how many steps the school staircase has?" Taken aback by this unexpected question, Bunji stopped in confusion. Seeing him pause, the senior student pushed him forward with more force from behind and continued. It's okay if you don't know. The school staircase has 12 steps.
But have you ever heard the rumor that an extra step appears at night?
At this moment, Bunji began to feel uneasy about the senior student behind him. His voice seemed to change, and the hand pushing him felt chilling. Fear began to creep into Bunji's mind. He wanted to stop and turn around, but his feet seemed to move on their own accord, allowing the senior student to continue pushing him forward. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. As the senior student mentioned the 13 steps, Bunji began counting each step anxiously, fearing an extra one might appear. Soon, he reached the 8th step, and tears started streaming down his face as he saw 5 more steps ahead of him. The senior student spoke quietly. During the day, the staircase in the school has only 12 steps. But at night, a 13th step appears because it's formed by my blood. As he uttered these words, the senior student's voice had turned terrifying. Realizing that he was in grave danger, Bunji immediately took action. He grabbed the Buddhist amulet hanging from his chest and held it tightly in his hand as he swung backward. Suddenly, control over his feet returned, and Bunji swiftly turned around. Strangely, there was no one behind him, no senior student as he had perceived. Without hesitation, Bunji dashed downstairs, his heart pounding in his chest. As he fled, he glanced back at the 13th step, only to witness a horrifying scene. The step was covered in blood, and numerous hands reached out from it. Bunji felt as if he heard someone say,
"Come join us. This is our paradise."
After hearing Bunji's account, the school authorities were stunned because his description closely matched that of Akira, who had perished within the school premises. In order to protect the school's reputation, the principal issued a gag order, forbidding anyone who knew about Bunji's experience from disclosing any details to the outside world, regardless of the truth behind the incident. From then on, eerie legends about the 13th step began to circulate intermittently across various campuses. The 13th step came to symbolize the delinquent student's paradise, where blood covered everything. More delinquent youths would be invited into this paradise to play, but the price, of course, was their own blood. According to legend, whenever it rains, a mysterious woman dressed in a tattered white dress appears out of nowhere. She drags something along with her, resembling a doll, as she wanders through the rain. If your curiosity gets the better of you, and you approach her for a closer look, you'll soon realize that what she's dragging isn't a doll at all. At that moment, the woman's eyes roll back, and her mouth stretches unnaturally wide, reaching from ear to ear. Without warning, she charges at the person who dared to investigate. The fate of that unfortunate soul? Perhaps the next time it rains, the figure she drags behind her will be you. This tattered woman is none other than Hikiko San, a yokai said to harbor the strongest grudge of the Heisei era. In Japanese urban legends, many yokai are believed to have originated from individuals who were bullied or mistreated. Hikiko San is one such yokai. The legend of Hikiko San began as a rumor among high school girls. It is said that Hikiko San's real name was Mori Hikiko. She was a tall, beautiful student with an outstanding academic record, making her a prominent figure at school. Not only did the teachers adore her, but the male students also admired her greatly. However, such a perfect girl often becomes a target of envy among other female students. Hikiko San had a gentle and introverted personality, which, combined with the jealousy of the other girls, made her an easy target for bullying. She was often taken to the girls' restroom or isolated places where she was beaten and kicked. On one occasion, the bullies grabbed her by the legs and dragged her in circles, leaving her body covered in scrapes and bruises, including her face. The bullies deliberately wanted to ruin her beauty, so they used all their strength to drag her around. After that incident, the bullies were expelled from school, but Hikiko San was unable to attend due to her injuries and stayed home to recover. It rained on the day she was dragged around, which made her start to hate rainy days. Some say that although Hikiko San was adored by everyone at school, her parents didn't like her. During her recovery, they even kept her under house arrest. Even after her injuries healed, her parents continued to confine her. This long-term confinement, combined with the shadow of the school bullying, led Hikiko San to develop a deep resentment toward people and society. Hikiko San's personality began to twist. She used her beauty to seduce one of the bully's boyfriends, which enraged the bully even more. The bullies reunited and subjected Hikiko San to the same cruel treatment, dragging her by the legs with even greater severity. The abuse continued until Hikiko San's body was left bloodied and mangled, and they showed no signs of stopping. Ultimately, the brutality led to her death from severe injuries. Filled with vengeful spirits, Hikiko San returned as a vengeful ghost to seek retribution from those who had tormented her. Whenever it rains, those who bullied Hikiko San will hear the sound of something being dragged along. They will then see a woman in a tattered white dress suddenly appear, dragging what looks like a doll toward them. Upon closer inspection, they realize that what she's dragging isn't a doll at all, but a human being who is bloodied and mangled. In the next moment, the person being dragged by Hikiko San transforms into one of her tormentors. It is said that Hikiko San only targets those who were involved in bullying and does not attack the victims of bullying. This may stem from a sense of sympathy, as Hikiko San herself was a victim of bullying. If you're unfortunate enough to encounter Hikiko San on a rainy day, don't even think about running away, as she moves incredibly fast. Running isn't the best option. Some say that Hikiko San is still deeply fearful of the bully who killed her, so speaking that person's name might scare her away. However, the name of that bully remains a mystery to this day. In Japan, the term hikikomori is used to describe people who stay shut in at home, also known as recluses. This term is derived from reversing the name Mori Hikiko. It reflects Hikiko San's situation after being bullied, where she became too afraid to leave her home. Bullying is unacceptable in any setting, be it school, the workplace, or elsewhere. Please stop bullying, or you might be the reason for the next Hikiko San's emergence. Legend has it that if a female student is still at school late at night and needs to use the toilet, she should check for toilet paper before entering. If she finishes using the toilet only to find there is no paper, she might suddenly hear a voice from the adjacent stall asking, "Do you need red paper or blue paper?" Regardless of which answer she gives, or even if she doesn't answer at all, she will find a masked figure in a red cloak pushing open her stall door. This figure is far more terrifying than any ordinary pervert. The red cloak makes him much more horrifying. When it comes to urban legends involving toilets, many people first think of Hanako San. However, there is another Japanese yokai related to toilets whose fame rivals that of Hanako San. The notorious Manto, the Red Cloak Phantom. Manto is described as a male spirit, ghost, or yokai who haunts bathrooms late at night. He is often said to haunt female bathrooms specifically, and in some versions of the legend, he haunts the stall closest to the furthest wall. This stall is typically the fourth one, as the number 4 is associated with death. The spirit is depicted wearing a flowing red cloak and a mask that hides his face, and is sometimes described as being handsome and charming beneath the mask. The story generally follows this pattern. A student, late at school one evening, urgently needs to use the toilet. The nearest restroom is one that students usually avoid. Old, poorly maintained, and rumored to be haunted. With no time to find another bathroom, the student enters. After finishing their business, they reach for the toilet paper, only to find none. Suddenly, they hear a strange voice asking, "Do you want red paper or blue paper?" If the student chooses red paper, they are violently sliced up, their blood spraying everywhere, making it look like they are wearing a red cloak. If the individual chooses the blue option, the consequences range from being strangled to having all of their blood drained from their body, leaving them dead and blue-faced. If an individual attempts to outsmart Manto by asking for a different color of paper, Manto will offer yellow toilet paper, which is said to result in being dragged to the underworld or hell. In Japanese, yellow represents yomi, the world of the dead. If ignoring the yokai, or replying that they do not want or prefer either kind of paper, is said to make the spirit go away. In some accounts, rejecting both options and running away from Manto also results in the individual's survival. The legend of Manto might have its origins in the early 20th century Blue Blanket incident in Fukui Prefecture, an eerie event that remains unsolved, with the perpetrator never identified or apprehended. It is said that this unresolved case quickly spread nationwide, giving rise to the legend of the Red Cloak. The incident allegedly occurred on a snowy early morning. A middle-aged man, wearing a blue blanket, arrived at Onna, a Japanese wholesale market. Seeking the store manager's help, he claimed that his mother was ill and nearby, hoping the manager could assist him. Trusting the man due to the heavy snowfall, the manager followed him. Subsequently, the man used the same method to lead away the manager's mother and wife. The three individuals led away by the man in the blue blanket were never seen again. Investigations revealed that there were no sick individuals in the nearby villages, and no families had requested assistance. Thus, the man's identity remained a mystery. Shortly afterward, the body of the manager's wife was found not far downstream in the river. The next day, the manager's mother's body was discovered submerged near the mouth of the Kuzuria River and was retrieved. Despite further searches, the manager's body was never found. However, the police did find the blue blanket worn by the man, now stained red with blood. Some say that the man in the blue blanket had a grudge against the manager, so he meticulously planned to kill the manager's entire family. Others believe that the man in the blue blanket was actually the manager himself, who staged the events to murder his mother and wife and then disappear. Whatever the truth may be, this incident caused quite a sensation at the time. The incident quickly spread across Japan, sparking the legend of the Red Cloak Phantom. Since then, many regions have reported sightings of a figure in a red cloak appearing in bathrooms, particularly in girls' school bathrooms. Those who encountered him often met with a grim fate, being assaulted and murdered. This also marked the beginning of the red paper, blue paper urban legend. Manto's appearance has evolved over time, along with the Japanese lexicon. Today, manto means cloak or cape in Japanese. An akamanto is typically depicted wearing a long red hooded cloak. Regardless of how the legend has changed, both he and Hanako San have left their bloody marks in bathroom folklore. One thing is certain, they are both unhygienic yokai. At 10 p.m., it's lights out in the school dormitories, and the bathrooms are off limits. As the dormitory prefect, Awang is responsible for ensuring that every male student is in their room by this time. So, he patrols between the dorms and the bathrooms. But even though it's well past lights out, there are still some students who sneak off to the showers. Hey, Awang wouldn't miss this chance to discipline those breaking the rules. If he catches someone in the act, he wastes no time in apprehending them. Thanks to the handsome Malaysian lad, Awang, for sharing this horror story. In many rural areas of Malaysia, only primary schools are available, so students must travel to cities for secondary education. Consequently, many secondary schools provide dormitories for students who live far away. Awang happens to be one of those students residing in the school dormitories. Schools are often hotbeds for eerie tales, and having lived in the dormitories for 5 years, Awang certainly has no shortage of horror stories to share. Today, I'll share with you the most terrifying paranormal experience Awang encountered during his time at school, an incident that landed him in the hospital. Staying in school dormitories, as the name suggests, means residing within the school premises, typically indicating a sizable institution. The dormitories are divided into male and female sections, each overseen by a resident dormitory administrator, usually teachers from out of town. Their role involves managing the day-to-day operations of the dormitories, but due to their teaching responsibilities, they may occasionally face overwhelming tasks. To alleviate this burden, they appoint responsible students as dormitory prefects to assist in managing the dormitories. Awang happens to be one of these fortunate students chosen as a dormitory prefect. His duties primarily involve patrolling during lights-out hours, ensuring no students are outside their rooms and that the bathrooms are vacant, a task not overly challenging. As night falls, there are typically only 3 adults present on the school grounds: the dormitory administrators for the male and female dormitories, and the campus security guard responsible for patrolling the entire premises to ensure safety. One evening, as the clock struck 10, signaling lights out, Awang went about his usual routine of taking attendance for the male students in the dormitory before embarking on his final patrol to the boys' bathroom. In the dim light cast by his flashlight, Awang approached the vicinity of the bathroom. Suddenly, he heard the sound of running water emanating from within, prompting him to wonder. Hadn't everyone been present during attendance just moments ago? Why would someone be using the bathroom now? As he drew closer to the bathroom, a figure darted out from the doorway. Without hesitation, Awang gave chase. The school was illuminated by only a few sparse lights at night, rendering the environment exceptionally dim. Awang relied on his flashlight to discern the direction as he pursued the fleeting figure. Reaching the fence at the back of the school, Awang watched as the fleeing figure agilely vaulted over the barrier and disappeared into the forest, leaving him standing halted at the fence. Awang surmised that the person's ability to overcome the fence indicated they were no novice to rule-breaking. Feeling frustrated at his inability to catch the individual, Awang returned to the bathroom, his mind clouded with annoyance. Upon switching on the lights, he noticed faint traces of blood on the sink, a telltale sign that the fleeing person had washed around there. So, they were injured after all. At that moment, a mischievous thought bubbled up in Awang's mind. He wondered if the fleeing person might return to the bathroom to tend to their wound once more. With a sly grin spreading across his lips, Wang switched off the lights and hid in the space beneath the sink, preparing to startle the person upon their return. Little did he know, this thought would be the gravest mistake of his life. Sure enough, before long, the door to the bathroom creaked open quietly and a figure entered. Everything unfolded just as Wang had anticipated. The person had indeed returned to clean their wound once more. The person stood at the sink, turning on the tap with a gushing sound indicating they were washing something. Mischievous Wang, positioned beneath them, could only see their feet. In a bid to startle them, Wang swiftly reached out and grabbed their foot, shouting, "You can't escape this time," as he emerged from beneath the sink. However, when Wang shone his flashlight to get a clear view of the person, his heart nearly stopped. He couldn't see the person's face, or rather, he couldn't see their head because it wasn't on their neck. Instead, the person was holding their own head in their hands, and what they were washing was their severed head. In the next moment, Wang blacked out. After a considerable time had passed with no sign of Wang returning to his room, both the dormitory administrators and the campus security guard searched the school grounds for him. Eventually, it was the security guard who discovered him unconscious in the bathroom, and he was promptly rushed to the hospital. Later, Wang recounted the terrifying paranormal encounter to school officials. However, the school authorities strictly forbade him from spreading such nonsense, as they found no traces of blood or any decapitated person in the bathroom. Moreover, if word of this eerie incident were to spread, it would surely cause a major uproar. Therefore, the school authorities issued a severe warning to Wang, instructing him to remain silent about the matter. There was a young boy who liked to secretly ride his father's motorbike around, but his mother didn't approve. Apart from safety concerns, she suffered from a cleanliness obsession and disliked her son getting dirty every time he rode. Whenever the boy got dirty, his mother would scold him and even resort to physical punishment. As boys tend to rebel, the more his mother restricted him, the more defiant he became. One night, he sneaked out again to ride his father's motorbike, and an accident occurred near a nearby high school. A car, unaware of the boy driving in the wrong direction, hit him at high speed, sending him and the bike flying. The impact was immense, and the boy died instantly. His head and body separated, blood spattered everywhere. Because his mother disliked dirtiness, to avoid being scolded or hit by her again, even after his death, the boy's soul still picked up his head and went to the nearby high school to wash, just to clean off the bloodstains on his head and body to avoid being scolded by his mother again. If you enjoy my channel, please help by hitting the subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so you won't miss my upcoming videos. Thank you for watching until the end, and I'll see you next time.